young Liebeck that he found especially for work. Especially for work. Well, as he complained that as he got middle-aged and the old pothead's experimental method. I once got high turned on by a detective lieutenant at the home of the dean of students. A test of the old head's myth that narcs have the best shit. It's true, they do. They do, doobie-doo.
Well, as I started, I said we are pressing the envelope here. Is that the expression, pushing the envelope? And next year, we're going to go a little further because we're going to have everybody speak first this way, and then David Boaz is going to say there's a 5-minute break here, and we're all going to go out and have a few puffs and come back, and you can compare yourself. But in the meantime, we have left 32 minutes to open this to discussion from the floor. And as I say, I don't think it's quite fair to say it's a question period, but if you have questions, fine, we can answer them. But if any of you want to give us your sense of where to go with this project or what have you, please do. Yes, Mike Gregg.
I'm Mike, and I have a marijuana problem. I'm out. If anybody has any thoughts, let me know.
Yes. Please give your name. Well, maybe you shouldn't. If you care to give your name.
My name is Andrew J. Lundy, and I'm an artist and a game designer and a writer and a computer programmer, and I publish a weekly webzine called Wonderland.com. And yes, I'm also a pothead. But I want to back up and say a little bit about my background because I think I'm a little bit unusual and even fairly unique in my age group in that I smoked pot for the first time when I was 29 years old. And I did that after years of having previously been a very uptight anti-drug guy. Basically, the propaganda in the 7th grade really took root. And there were 3 things that made me change my mind about it, and there was, among many others, 3 stand out. Number 1 was my lovely wife, Kristen, who, my God, she smoked pot, and yet her life wasn't ruined the way everything I had been told about pot indicated it must be. And number 2 was I read Jack Herer's book. And number 3 was that I heard that the Beatles had started smoking pot around the time that there also started to be a real change in their music. And that Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which many consider like the greatest rock album of all time, was like they were totally stoned when they did that. I'm like, and I was one who really believed that the Beatles had really had a transition that made them really great. And I thought, if that's what did that, then how can I be refusing that? Because I had grown up in college, I wanted to be a writer, and I spent many years pursuing these sorts of things, and to be turning my back on something that could really make a difference in my creative craft didn't make sense, so I finally started doing it, and now, I do it every day. But I can really see the difference that it's made in my work, because I can look back over the length of time when I was creating things, and now I can look back at the things that have come in the last few years when I feel I've really been on the top of my game, and I can tell it's because of the stuff that I'm smoking. And to give a very specific example with my artwork, previously I'd always felt like I had too much tension in my hands when I was drawing. I always felt like I'm going to fuck up, and so I was too tense about it. But now, when you smoke, it gives you that looseness, and it makes me able to flow with my hands so much more easily. But anyway, all that's just my personal, I just want to echo what you guys have said about how incredibly valuable it is as sort of creative energy, creative fuel, for helping with that creative drive. But I want to tell you one other thing, and that is that I had an idea a few days ago, and for a long time I've been trying to figure out how to use this internet not as a negative thing, like Jay was saying, but as a positive thing, how we can really use this to sort of bring our whole community together. And the thing that I thought about was Horton. Horton hears a who. Remember that story? They hear the little tiny voices on the little tiny speck, and Horton hears them and he believes that they're there, but everybody else doesn't believe them. They want to destroy the little speck world, and there's a whole world down there. And what they do to save themselves is they all get together and start making noise all at the same time. And they yell, "We are here," and they finally are heard when the last of them all yells together. And so this inspired me to try to say, let's all on 4/20, April 20th, let's all try to get everybody in our mentality to say the same thing, which is, does it really make sense to put people in jail just for smoking marijuana? And I feel like if we all said that at the same time, in letters, in emails, in direct conversation to people, it would be like a sort of mass hypnosis thing. Everyone would suddenly hear us, and it might be a changing moment. Anyway, that's my idea. I put up a website about it. It's called bringupthesubject.org. And I have flyers to give all the material that's on the site. I'll be at the back handing them out later if you want one. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. I should tell you that your hunch about the Beatles is correct. I had the privilege of spending a day with John Lennon when some of you may be old enough to remember that John Mitchell wanted to throw him out of the country after he got involved in protesting the Vietnam War. And he asked me to testify at the trial that was coming up. And at dinner, I mentioned to him the first time I got stoned, my kids had always said to me, Dad, you ought to get yourself out of the Baroque and listen to the Beatles. Now, I couldn't help but listen to the Beatles in my house because they were always playing it. And people were always offering Betsy and me marijuana, but because I knew I was going to have to testify, doctor, have you ever used marijuana? I resisted doing this. And finally one night, after a particularly nasty experience with a senator, I said to Betsy, now is the time. And we didn't get to it. The third time we did, and one of the reasons I knew was that I heard Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band for the first time. It was a rhythmic implosion. I couldn't believe it. Well, anyway, I told John about this at dinner, and then he went on to tell me about Dylan's turning him on, and what a difference it made in their music. So you're absolutely right in your hunch about that. Steve Hager.
I don't think I have to out myself. I think I did that 12 years ago when I came to work for High Times. But I want to talk about the sacramental use of marijuana, which I see as a very...
You're speaking too close to the mic or something.
Sacramental use of marijuana, which I think is a very significant non-recreational, non-medical use of marijuana. And I wasn't a big pothead when I went to High Times magazine. I just smoked it at parties when people gave it to me. I never even hardly paid for it. But being at the magazine forced me to learn all these facts about marijuana. And at the end of the line, I'm reading the Rig Veda, which is the oldest living religious document in the world. And it's describing this ceremony that is the central ceremony of the whole culture, where these people take this plant, which they call the king of the healing plant, which heals the sick, which makes the blind see, the lame walk, and it clothes the naked, and they put it in warm milk, and they all drink it together, and they stand in a circle, and they hold hands, and they own together. And if you look at hippie culture, which has been inherited from the jazz musicians, and the culture that's been created, that uses marijuana, I believe, as a sacrament, which is, the rest of the world is in denial about this, but it is that sacrament that helped create the oldest religions in the world. And in the 60s, it's all being rediscovered, and we're trying to re-implement it. But the fact is, people don't recognize that this is a culture. It is a spiritual culture. Marijuana is the sacrament, and the reason